that time of the year. All right, y'all. Got the log splitter hooked up behind the Kubota. And the first thing we're going to do, guys, park the Kubota a good safe distance away from wherever you're cutting and dropping a tree. Because I would not want to explain to the missus how I cut a tree down on her Kubota. Hey, everyone. All right, I got back on this firewood thing. And I think I'm going to cut this tree right here down. This one right here, it don't have much anything on the top of it. It's just got a couple of limbs and it's pretty easy, and this is where I do my deer hunting. All right, I moved y'all around. Y'all are actually on the stump where I just cut the tree from, wedged into the little thing. Alright, I'll show y'all what you got here. For this tree, this is what I had y'all propped on. I just had y'all wedged in those. So this tree's all cut up. Good bit of firewood, y'all, once you split it up. Still gotta cut that up. I'm just tired of taking a break. This is one of the areas where I hunt out. Damn. I don't do much hunting anymore. Sometimes I'll try to take one at the end of the season or something like that and just put it up for meat for us to have. I might take two, then sometimes I might not even go hunting. Right now I'm focused on getting all this firewood cut up, and what I'll do is go get the tractor, put all this stuff in the bucket and take it right to the log splitter and drop it off, and I'll show you how we split it up and everything, and then just get it stacked up for the year. It's pretty warm today. It's like 80s, high 80s, and not a good day to be cutting firewood. It's too hot. I like doing it when it starts cooling off and it's in the 60s and 70s, stuff like that, where you ain't out here sweating like a pig trying to cut firewood up. It just needs to be done so we can go ahead and get it on the rack and let it be curing and drying for next year. Just one of them things you gotta do, regardless if you want to do it or not. Just one of them things you gotta do. So let me take a break and finish cutting this up, and then I'll take y'all on to show y'all about the log splitter and stuff like that. Y'all, I was just gonna tell you, I get a pretty good bit of firewood out of that tree. In my younger years, I used to think nothing of cutting one that was probably 40 inches around or something like that. Well, the log splitter will split it good, but getting up in my years, you can't pick the 40-inch logs up on the log splitter no more. It will turn vertical, and you can just roll them over and split them that way, but I do not like doing it that way. I'd rather pick them up and split them on it horizontally, because it's too much work picking up when you turn it up vertical. You have to pick everything off the ground, where when you do it horizontally, I'll show you, you can just split the piece of wood and chunk it into the pile. And where you do it vertical, you actually have to pick the wood up off the ground and throw it over in the pile. So it actually adds a step to it. And once you pick up 100, 200, 300 pieces of firewood, you get kind of tired of that. So it's easier just to pick the log up, stand up there, like I say, I'll show y'all, and split it, and this, as it splits, just chunk it out. So that's why I'm just trying to find trees. What I try to do is try to find like a diseased tree, or one that doesn't look like it's very healthy. I do not like cutting good hardwoods. I just try to find one that missing most of the branches on it, most of the limbs on it, something like that, so we can use that for firewood and not anything good. So like I say, I like my hardwoods, and try to keep and do good management with them, and just thin out the disease stuff, the stuff that looks like it's deformed or it's not going to do very good. right, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. As you saw in that video, I turned around and looked at the camera and wasn't paying attention, and you saw that limb pop. Well, that's why it's always important. Safety first. I was sitting there focused on the camera, make sure the camera hadn't fell over. And good thing the limb popped in the opposite direction. But when you're cutting wood, you got to watch out for stuff like that, because that limb easily could have popped you in the face or something and knocked your teeth out. I mean, it's amazing the stored energy in a tree when it falls on limbs that's pressed up against the ground, pressed up against another tree, pressed up against itself. Y'all, it's just like a bow and arrow or a crossbow or any compound bow, anything like that. There is a lot of stored energy in a tree limb when it's under pressure. And it can easily knock your teeth out of your head or break your leg or break your arm, anything like that. So that's a lesson learned. Paying attention to the camera, looked over to make sure it was okay when I was cutting, and y'all saw what happened. So safety first. Make sure you're always paying attention to what you're doing, the other things around you, especially when you're doing something dangerous like cutting firewood. All right, y'all, I'm up here at the tractor. I didn't find another tree right now. I'll keep looking. I found a couple. The one thing you have to worry about when you cut a tree, I can find a bunch of them. It's being able to get to it without making such a mess. Last thing you want to do is be toting big 25, 30-inch round pieces of firewood through the woods all the way to a tractor bucket. So I try to find some that are defect, like I said in the last video, that's defective or messed up, or the tree don't look very good, healthy, whatever. And I try to find them in a location that I can easily get to without tearing up my other vegetation and stuff like that to get to. Well, y'all can see the tractor sitting here in the background. Well, let me tell you, I had a chore with that tractor yesterday. It was time to change the hydraulic oil, the 400-hour hydraulic oil change. And you have to change all the filters in all the hydraulic oil, not just a filter change. I mean all the hydraulic oil. Well, there's 7 gallons of hydraulic oil in that tractor. So, one, it's very expensive. But as y'all can see, I have a mess here where I drained out all that hydraulic oil that I got to clean up, all my tools and stuff like that, because I mean, it's some big bolts, some big nuts, some big filters and everything. So I had to bring out all the big stuff that I don't normally use. But I got it completely changed. I still have the oil to change in it and a new fuel filter to put in it. But I'm gonna go ahead and use it today to go ahead and get that firewood and get it up to the log splitter to show y'all, and go ahead and put a couple more hours on the oil before I change it. Because I really like to try to change my oil and stuff in my equipment at the end of the season. And the reason that is, if there's any contaminants or water, anything that's in that oil from where you've used it all year, and you let your equipment sit all season during the winter and the fall months and stuff like that, like a rototiller, for example, the rototiller over there. If you don't use it, see, I'm not going to use it all the way to spring. So I will change the oil in that. And like I was saying, the reason is because if there's anything in the oil, moisture, anything, your bearings will actually rust sitting in oil. So your bearing that's hanging down, you got a crankshaft on your motor, the bearing that's hanging down or wherever the line is, it will actually rust and then cause your motor to prematurely destroy itself. So I always like at the end of the season, and I try to use, like the tractor I use all the way in the wintertime. So I like to, as late as I can, change the oil in the tractor. But all my other equipment, rototillers, pressure washers, the generators, stuff like that, I will go ahead and change the oil in them and park them. So I'll have fresh oil to start the new season, put some gas stabilizer in it, stuff like that. What I really like to do is I'll go buy me about 5 gallons of ethanol-free fuel, and I will either drain or run my equipment before the oil change to get the oil warmed up and to run all the gas out of it, and then, or pump the gas out and use the gas in something that I'm going to use on a daily basis, and then I will put ethanol-free fuel in my equipment and then run it and get it in the system real good, and then do the oil change and park it. That way you don't have to worry about the ethanol gumming up your carburetors and stuff like that. It's a little more expensive, but you're only using it to store your equipment during the wintertime. So let me get this mess cleaned up. As y'all can see, 5 gallon buckets of hydraulic oil, and all the buckets that it took to put all the used hydraulic oil in. So I'll have to take that to the recycling place. And let me get this cleaned up, and then we'll get the tractor and go down there and get that firewood. Got all my mess cleaned up, and we are going back armed only with a Boy Scout axe. This was my grandmama's axe. She had this axe. I know she carried this axe for at least 40 years. And got a little bit of wear on it, but I just recently put a new handle on it. The old handle had rotted off and got just all chipped up and was, ooh, I got a yellow jacket flying around me. Sorry, y'all. He likes me today. And the only thing you need this for is cutting like suckers that you might have missed with the chainsaw on the logs, or when you get them to the log splitter and there's a sucker on it or something like that, that's a little piece of limb or something like that, you can just chop it right off before you run it through the log splitter. So that's all you should need when you go back. I've already cut it all up, so we're good to go. We're about to hop on the tractor and head that way. You know, I was just thinking on the ride down here from where I had the tractor parked at to where the woods cut up in at the woods. You know, overall it might be cheaper to go buy like a propane heater and a propane tank and warm your house. We have electric heat and stuff like that. With our air conditioning, we got a heat pad. But there's just something about being able to have a nice fire going in your fireplace and be able to prop your feet up in front of it and listen to the fire crackle and be able to toast you a marshmallow if you wanted to on a cold morning or late in the evening. It's relaxing to be able to sit by a real fire. And also our stove, we're able to cook on it. You can use it for cooking. You could actually cook a whole meal on it. It's got a big flat surface on it where you could cook like biscuits, bacon, sausage, whatever, all at the same time. And it's probably a lot more work, like coming out here and cutting all the wood up and the expenses. You know, you got to buy a chainsaw, you got to buy a log splitter, or you can use an axe. That's what most people use, is an axe. And I did that for a long time and had a couple near misses about chopping my toe off when you miss the log, or the log prematurely splits and bounces out and the axe comes down and about hits you in the toe. And I just opted to go ahead and spend the money and get a log splitter for me and the missus to use. Like I say, it might be cheaper in the long run, you know, by the time you buy all the equipment and stuff and you get out here and work and cut the wood up and get it split, get it stacked up, let it cure. But to me, just the way I was raised up, you just can't beat being able to wake up on a Saturday morning. You know, you wake up 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and it's still kind of dark outside, and you're cool, and you go out and grab a couple pieces of firewood and start the fire back up after it's been burning all night. And just to be able to sit there with a cup of coffee in front of the fire and relax. And it's peaceful. So, you know, I know a lot of people can't do this. They're not able to, you know, and they have to rely on gas. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with using propane or natural gas or anything like that, or heat oil. This is just the way we like to do it. And the missus, she really loves, because like when I come home from work and it's a chilly day, that's the first thing she says: we need to start a fire. We need to get a fire going. And it's just nice to be able to do that and be able to start a nice warm fire and warm your house up. And even the dogs like it. They'll go down there and lay on the tile floor in front of the fireplace with their bellies towards the fire. They like laying there. So anyway, that was just my 2 cents on it. Like I say, it might be more expensive in the long run. Who knows? The wood's free. Buying the equipment and stuff to do it with isn't. And back in the olden days, they would actually come back here and saw a tree down with an old hand bow saw. You know, took 2 people, and then they would cut it into a certain length and they would actually take a team of mules or a horse and drag that log back to the house, and then they would pick it up and put it on like some sawhorses or something like that, and then they would continue sawing it up with that bow saw. They didn't have chainsaws and all that stuff, and then all the technology come around, and you got uh, gas-powered saws and sawmills and chainsaws and stuff like that. And I'm sure a few of our viewers probably remember the old bow saws. You talk about something dangerous. I've ran quite a few bow saws in my life, and let me tell you, you don't get that thing situated good before you start, that thing will kick out, and you could always tell old timers they'd have a scar right down their forehead where them bow bars had kicked back and hit them in the forehead, and they're lucky it didn't kill them. And I knew a bunch of people that had those scars on the forehead from a bow bar, and they were extremely dangerous. So chainsaws are still dangerous. I've seen chainsaws kick back and hit people. Anyway, let's get to this. That was just my 2 cents on it. And like I say, things have changed, technology's changed, and I still like to do it at least the old-fashioned way myself can do. I'm too old to get out here with no hand saw and try to saw all this up. So a chainsaw and the tractor and the log splitter comes in handy, but I still like at least the old-timeness of having an actual wood fire. So let me get this loaded up. I'll show y'all me doing that, and we'll get it on up to the log splitter, y'all. I don't know how long y'all gonna stay up there when I throw these things in the bucket and might bounce off, so hold on. All right, y'all, that's a bucket full. And y'all, I made a mistake. I forgot to cut that piece up. I think it might be cut halfway through. Yeah. But I forgot to cut that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces right there. So I will actually have to bring the chainsaw back and cut that up. All right, let's get this on to the log splitter. Alright y'all, this is just an old 22-ton log splitter from Northern Tool. It's got a Honda motor on it. It does good. I could have got a bigger one, but let me tell you, I have stuck at least 40-inch logs, 45-inch logs in this thing, and I've had no trouble with it. So I don't see no need for a bigger one. This one is held up now. I believe we've had this for about 3 years. And so we got all this wood over here. So let me set y'all up and figure out how to do that. I might need to go get a little tripod, y'all. I don't know anything to sit y'all on down here. Hey, y'all. Before I start on this, I just wanted to tell y'all, we did figure out, that rooster. We did managed to figure out what was getting our chickens and getting in our hen house, and it killed our chickens. And pretty certain it probably got snites too. Shep actually is the good guy, the superhero in this. He alerted me and my wife the other morning, probably about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. He was barking that something wasn't right. So I came outside to figure out what it was, and my wife was inside looking, and I walked around the corner of the house and looking up at the barn, and he was sitting there at the fence. I'd shut the gate, and the cows and the goats were up in the upper pasture, and Shep was down in the lower pasture, which now we usually just leave the gate open so he can go up there and actually protect them. But we sat there for a few minutes, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and was just thinking maybe, he saw a deer or something like that. And about that time I was about to turn around, a fox ran out of the barn and stopped about like 5 or 6 foot away on the corner of the barn towards the log cabin. And then he ran back in the barn. And then he came back out and he stopped in the exact same spot. Well, that's been dealt with. Let's just put it that way. We don't have to worry about the fox coming back and harming any of our chickens or anything like that. And the cows were actually staying outside on the ground. And I believe it's because that fox has been going in the barn and the cows just don't want to have nothing to do with it. And the fox was walking right beside the cows. I'm talking about within like 15, 20 feet of the cows bedded down. And he wasn't messing with them, but they just didn't seem to want to have anything to do with the fox. So Shep, he done a really good job. He done his job, what we bought him for. And he was watching out for his animals. And he alerted me and my wife that something wasn't right. And we handled that problem. And hats off to Shep. He done an outstanding job, and I'm very proud of him. So, like I say, that's why we bought him, and that he was doing his job down here. So that's really good, and I'm proud of him. All right, let's get this going. I got me a water, y'all. Find somewhere to sit it. The Honda motor, y'all. Let's see if it cranks on the first or second pull. Second pull. I put some fresh grease down here, so I'm going to kind of run it back and forth once or twice, get it smeared out. Might be able to see the grease down there. Once this thing gets going, it splits some wood. It's got a hard job. right, y'all. Let me tell you a few things that was going on there. All right. So all that wood split up really good. If y'all look at this, if y'all look at this, how good and straight that is, how good the straight cuts it is, that's because that is oak. Now, when I cut a hickory tree down and you start getting into hickory, it really starts looking splintered up like that. I'm talking about 100 times worse. Hickory is the worst thing to try to split. Oak splits nice and pretty straight. Hickory ain't no good. It burns good. I mean, it burns the same, but it's aggravating the split because you're constantly having to keep like a little Boy Scout axe or a little hatchet with you. Because once you get to the end on the log splitter, it just doesn't shave through all the wood, and you can't rip them apart. This stuff you can, usually it splits right there and falls off. I mean, there was a couple that I had to, struggle with this a little bit, but nothing big. Well, I'm sure y'all saw me picking this stuff and throwing it into a separate pile. Well, let me tell you what I do with this. I put this stuff in a old milk crate or something like that. Stack it straight up until you get a milk crate full. And see, I've already there's more than that on the ground. That much. And I'll stick that in the milk crate. And let me tell you, that is the best fire starter. All you got to do is throw a couple pieces of newspaper in there, pine straw, a couple pine cones or something, and 2 or 3 pieces of that. That will get lit, and then you start putting your wood on it, and you got a nice roaring fire. So that's the whole bucket. And you can see pretty good pile of wood right there. So I'll get the tractor, I'll go back and get some more, and I ain't gonna bore y'all with all that. Same thing over and over and over and over. So let me go get that done and get that all split up. But ain't no sense in just sitting here, y'all watching an hour of splitting firewood. But that's only probably, maybe 15 minutes at the most. And that's a pretty good pile of firewood, y'all. So let me get on this and get the rest of this split up.